Hi, welcome back to my kitchen. Today, to celebrate blueberries, we're actually going to be making a duck breast with blueberry sauce. Now, I know many of you have probably not either tried duck or maybe you've tried it but you've never cooked it at home, and I'm going to really try to make that easy for you. It's so delicious. That is my very favorite meat out of all meats. So I'm very excited to cook this for you, and let's get started. Okay, well, few things get me as excited, culinarily speaking, as a duck breast. And I am going to show you how to prepare these. So this is what a duck breast looks like. It is much leaner on this side than even a chicken breast is, a boneless, skinless. They usually come frozen, almost always. If you can find fresh, then grab it because it's rare. And they have a lot of fat on the top, which is one of the things that makes duck delicious. And I'm going to show you how to render that properly when you cook a duck breast. So I've got two. If there's anything weird on them, you can pull that off, but usually they're pretty well trimmed. And then in order for this fat to render off properly, we're going to make some crisscrosses in the fat. So I'm going to take my knife, and you want a really sharp knife for this because you want to go through the fat, but you do not want to go through the meat. I'm gently going to make crisscross cuts through the fat and again, not through the meat. This also helps. So duck tends to, if you just leave this fat on the top and you don't do this step and take the time to do this, this will kind of shrink up because it's so fatty and shrink your breast up a little bit. So we don't want that to happen. So we take the time to do this. I'm gonna go this way first. Just be real careful. See how I'm not going through the meat, I'm going just through the fat. You can see that in my cuts. It's a little harder to do that toward the edges, but we're gonna go in the other direction, so that is totally fine. Okay, so we went one direction, as you can see, and now we are going to go the opposite diagonal direction. So we went this way diagonally, now we're gonna kind of go this way. We're making diamonds. Again, just don't go through the meat. Don't go crazy. If it looks like these edges, because there's so much fat, you can kind of lift those up a little bit. But just be careful when you're doing this. Use a really sharp knife. Keep your little digits away from it. And gently go through this. This is totally worth the effort it takes to do this. So you can see I've got these diamond shapes now on the skin, and when we cook, that's what's gonna show up. So I'm gonna finish doing this with both of my breasts here, and then I will see you in just a second. Okay, the next thing we're gonna do is carefully blot these off with a paper towel. I already did this before, but we're doing it again. We do not want any moisture on these at all. So I'm gonna get both sides again. Just make sure there's nothing liquidy on here. Since these come frozen, they tend to exude a little more liquid than a fresh one would. All right, I'm gonna wash my hands and then we're gonna put salt and pepper on these guys. All right, we're gonna season generously, not too generously, but you do wanna put a nice layer of salt on these guys. So that is what I'm doing. And of course, a little bit of pepper. My grinder makes like really big pepper flakes. So I'm trying not to go too crazy on it. Okay, and I'm gonna bring this over to the stove. I have a pan heating over medium heat, and it doesn't look clean, but it is. It's just old, so it's got marks on the bottom. But I am going to put the duck breast in skin side down. No oil, no fat, nothing in the pan. And that sounds like a little hot, so I'm actually, even though it's on medium, I'm gonna turn it down just a tad. Our goal right now is to render as much of the fat out of these duck breasts as we can. Because if you don't do this, if you cook this side too hot, then what's gonna happen is your meat's gonna cook before the fat renders, and then you're gonna have a big gelatinous layer of fat on the top, and it's not gonna be pleasant to eat. So we really wanna render it down so when we eat it, we can have a nice slice with a thin layer of fat and a layer of the meat. And it's like the best thing ever. To me, it's my version of heaven. If there's a food heaven, that sends me to it. I'm also gonna season the other side. with a little bit of salt and pepper. And this process of rendering the fat out, you know, it takes a few minutes, and that is okay because we are taking an ingredient that is very, what do I want to say? We're taking an ingredient that is special, and we're not just throwing it in a pan. We're giving it a lot of TLC because that's what it needs and deserves. So you can see already the fat is starting to come out. That's why you don't need any fat in the pan. These are going to render a ton of fat out. We can save the fat, use it to make duck fat roasted potatoes, yum, and other duck fat roasted delicious things. So I'm going to let this go, and I will come back and show you what it looks like when it's just about ready to flip over, and I'll tell you how long that is. It's been about 5 minutes, and I just want to show you what's happening. You can see underneath, this is not a dark golden brown, so it is not ready. We are looking for a lot more fat to come out of in the pan, although this is a fair amount that's already coming out here. But we are looking for a nice golden brown color, and you'll know when you see it, it will look like crispy, delicious skin. And again, the reason it's not happening quickly is because we have this low and slow thing going on, which is exactly what we want. I have my burner, I have a gas stove. My burner is like 1 dot below medium. So it's going to depend on how hot your stove gets. But again, it's good that it's that color right now. We do not want a dark brown color yet. And you can also see if the duck breast is pretty thick. And if I look at the side of it, this hasn't cooked halfway through even yet. So we're on the right path, but I wanted to give you an update, and I will see you in a couple more minutes when we are ready to turn this over. So I have 2 pretty different sized duck breasts. This one's a lot larger than this one, and I think this one is ready to flip. So I'm going to do that. Look at that beautiful color that we have, and look how much fat has rendered out. Instead of a big, massive fat cap, we now have these beautiful, crispy little diamonds, which is amazing. So they are going to cook at different times. That's totally fine. I'm just going to wait until the big one is ready to flip over. At this point, the second side is not going to take a very long time, and duck breast is usually best if it's served rare to medium rare. If you're one of those people who likes your meat cooked well done, I would not eat duck breast. It's just, you're like gonna kill it. Or eat duck leg, because duck leg is always well done. So this meat is delicate, and if you cook it too far, it's just gonna lose its juiciness. So this is only gonna cook a couple of minutes on the second side. And I'm gonna keep feeling it, because you'll be able to kind of feel when it isn't too squishy. It'll start to firm up a little. But this one, I'm only going to cook maybe 2-3 minutes on this side, and then I'm going to take it out of the pan. But I'll come back when I flip the other duck breast over. Okay, it's time. It's been just a couple more minutes, and I am now going to flip this bigger breast over. You can see again the beautiful golden skin we have that it has rendered out, and this is all going to be beautiful and crispy. Even if you look from the side, you can see that it's not a massive fat cap anymore. So this guy is just going to cook again a couple more minutes in the pan. I like a pretty rare duck breast, so this is a thick one, probably 3 minutes maximum. And then I already took the other one out of the pan. It's resting. We're going to let these rest, and while they rest, we're going to make the sauce. So next time you see me, that's what we're going to start. So step 1 to making our sauce is I dumped the excess fat out of this pan, and I'm gonna use just some red wine to get the delicious brown bits off the bottom. We absolutely do not want to waste those. I'm not putting this over the heat. I'm just gonna let it sit here because we have some other things to do to our blueberry sauce, but I wanted to just start this getting in there because we are gonna add this. Never waste delicious brown bits because they're full of flavor. The first thing we're going to use for our blueberry sauce is a shallot. So this is a shallot. It's in the onion family. It's like a very small, intense onion. I don't feel like it tastes like garlic at all, though some people are like, it's like a cross between onion and garlic. I don't feel that way. I feel like it's just a very strong, intense small onion, and it's very French. And we're going to use 1 small shallot for this dish. We do not want a large shallot. These come like this big. They come massively large sometimes, and we don't want that for this particular dish. So what we're going to do is, just like an onion, you take the skin off, and then I'm just cutting off the top and bottom of the shallot. We're going to do that for both sides. And then we're pretty much going to chop it like we chop an onion as well. It's not complicated. These ingredients might not be new to you, or they might be new to you, I should say, but they shouldn't be scary. I'm trying to make it not scary to use things like this. So what we're going to do is, this was our root side here, and just like an onion, we're going to turn it opposite, and then I'm going to cut it just once this way. And then I'm going to, just like I would with an onion, I'm going to make slices this way. We want to make sure we make even slices. And then again, just like an onion, we're going to be careful, and we're just going to make thin slices this way. So that's basically how you chop a shallot. And these are intense, so they usually make me cry. So if you hear sniffling, it's definitely not sad for me, because I'm excited that I get to eat duck in a few minutes. It's just the intense shallots. So I just wanted to show you how to chop a shallot. Sometimes the end is hard to get like a small little piece. You can just run your knife through it. And I'm going to do the other shallot, and then we will get to cooking our shallots and starting our sauce. I have some unsalted butter, about a tablespoon, heating in a small saucepan. And to that, we are going to add our shallots. So I'm just sauteing these. I'm turning my heat down a little bit. We don't want to brown these. We are actually just trying to get them to a translucent state. So the goal is not to brown, which my heat was, I think, just a little bit high, but that's okay. As long as you stir it, it will keep them from getting too brown. And again, I turn the heat down, so that also helps. So again, it's just until they're translucent. These are smaller pieces, and these also burn faster than onions. Just like garlic burns pretty fast. These are maybe like a step or two below how quickly garlic burns, but you do need to keep your eye on them to make sure that you're not in that burn territory. Those look pretty good to me, so I am going to add 2 tablespoons of blueberry preserves to this. We're just gonna stir that until it's kind of dissolved in there. I'll let that cook out just a minute. I turn my heat back up to a medium. And once the blueberry preserves have cooked, just a minute or two, you're gonna add 1 teaspoon of Dijon mustard. And you're going, what? Trust me, it's important for that to be in there, and it really adds a lot of flavor. I started making duck with a cherry sauce, but it's blueberry week, so I have adapted my recipe to have blueberries. And the first place I had duck that I loved it, they put Dijon mustard in their sauce. And now I do too, and it just adds something important. Next, we're gonna add a tablespoon of brandy. Give that a stir. It's all about flavor in this recipe. We're gonna add the red wine and brown bits that we had gotten from our duck pan. So that's going in. And I've got my stove turned up to medium. I'm probably gonna crank it up a little bit more. I do want this to cook down just a little bit. At this point, also, we're gonna drop in a sprig or 2 of fresh thyme. That's what fresh thyme looks like, and you don't need to take it off the stem for this recipe. You just chuck it on in. And the last ingredients before we finish the sauce with some fresh blueberries are, this is a 1/4 cup of chicken stock. It started out as a cup of chicken stock, and I reduced it on the stove, and it is now 1/4 cup of chicken stock. Gives more intense flavor. Otherwise, the sauce will be watery. And we are also adding a tablespoon of fresh squeezed lemon juice. Super important for the acidity of this sauce. So now I'm gonna let this cook down for a little bit because we don't want this to be a watery sauce, but it's also not gonna be a super duper thick sauce. Somewhere in between. It's almost like a glaze. Let me see a little lemon peel or lemon seed that I missed there. Look at that. So I'm gonna let this cook down for just a minute or two and then I will be right back. I let this cook down for probably about 5 minutes and now I'm gonna shut the heat off and I'm putting in 1/2 cup of frozen blueberries. The reason that I'm using frozen blueberries is I wanna cool the sauce off, so I didn't defrost these at all. And the reason I want to cool the sauce off is because we're going to finish it with some butter. And if the sauce is bubbling hot like that, we won't be able to do that. We can always turn the heat back on a little bit. But while those blueberries are defrosting in our sauce, we can begin to add some butter to it. So I'm going to put probably 2 total tablespoons of butter into the sauce. And I'm going to do it about a teaspoon at a time. And when you do that, you're just going to keep stirring constantly. And this is a French technique where it helps your sauce thicken and turn into a beautiful emulsified sauce without splitting. So that's why we turn the heat off. That's why the blueberries are in there helping to start cool things off. If it gets too cold, I can always turn the heat back on. But by the time we finish this process, our blueberries will be perfectly defrosted, but not like overdone. And it's gonna be amazing. So here's our another teaspoon of butter. So just keep doing that, be patient. If you're not sure where your sauce is at, you can also, take a blueberry, taste it. I think it's getting a little bit too cold. So I'm gonna light my burner again. And I will turn my stove to low. So I can finish this process. But you do not want to boil this. You do not want it to be hot, hot, hot. We are gently thickening the sauce with some butter. And this is enough sauce for probably 4 to 5 or 6 duck breasts. You're not going to serve a bucket of sauce with them. Although it's so delicious, you might want to. But yeah, that's not what we're doing. So I can see some steam rising again from my pan. So I'm going to turn my heat back off. And I'm going to incorporate my last couple teaspoons. So this is not difficult, as you can see. You just have to be patient and you just have to keep stirring. And believe me, it's worth it. Duck is delicious, but it's still pretty delicate. So you don't want a sauce that is going to overwhelm it or be like super thick. It's perfect with a sauce that's about this consistency, and you'll see the consistency when we plate everything. And once this last little bit of butter goes in, we are done with our blueberry sauce. Let's see if I can I know I have like a wooden spoon, but you can kind of see what we're dealing with here. It's thick, but it's not separated. And it is going to be delicious with our duck. So let's go slice our duck breast. I cannot wait. My mouth is already watering. It's time. I did not tent these with foil while they rested, by the way, because the skin can get soggy on you. So I don't necessarily recommend that. Let's see how we did. I am curious. It's looking good so far. Oh yeah, this is when I get really excited. So you're cutting it down the length of the breast. You're cutting thin slices. You don't want to cut big, thick slices. This is not that kind of meat. And let's see how the inside looks. So this is a nice medium rare. Hopefully you can see that on the camera. And let's check our other duck breast. That one's looking perfect. I'm very excited. This one might be a little more rare because it's thicker, but I did also leave it on the stove a little bit longer. Oh, it's perfect. Honestly, for me, it could even be more rare than this, but this looks amazing. I'm very happy with the way this turned out. I actually didn't practice this recipe because I made this so many times in the past that I was pretty confident that I would be able to do it without a practice run. Practice the sauce though. So getting to the end, and that is what I call a perfectly prepared duck breast, even to the last piece, even it's perfectly rare to the last piece. This is what you want. This is a little rare in the middle, cooked on the outside. Look at the fat has rendered down. And I am so excited to taste this, but I'm going to plate it up for you. I'm going to resist. I'll be right back. All right, it's time to taste. I hope you think it looks good. I think it looks delicious. I'm excited. I mean, it's perfectly cooked, if I do say so myself. You can see the fat is the perfect amount of rendered and the sauce is thick. I have to get a blueberry. Blueberries are still juicy. That's why we didn't destroy them. I want this piece with the fat on it. The fat of duck fat is so tasty, especially when you render it properly. I will sit here all day and eat this. You can see how tender it is. I'm having zero trouble cutting through with my knife. It's so good. I did myself proud. I really hope you guys try this recipe. Don't be intimidated. This is kind of a special occasion recipe because duck breast is not cheap, but you could also use the same sauce and make chicken. So please try this though. It is really delicious. And as you can see, it's not very complicated. You just have to be patient. Check this recipe out and all of my recipes on thegamblingchef.com. And please be sure to subscribe to and like my videos on YouTube and follow me and also like my videos on Facebook, and I'm on Instagram too. I'll see you guys next time.